Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Unhinged Motorsports Podcast. As always, I'm Tyler,
And I'm Josh.
and there wasn't a whole lot of racing stuff happening this weekend. We had some NASCAR, some GT World Cup.
World
Before the
Challenge.
weekend, or World Challenge, before the weekend, we've got some pretty huge news about GP, Max's race engineer. And we're going to cover all of that and some NASCAR as well. But before we get into any of that, we are going to discuss our rebrand
Yeah,
because
this
we've
is something
rebranded.
we hinted at last week that we would talk about, and really it comes down to what we feel like was coming anyway. With our growing anger and disinterest towards some of the things going on in F1, and that leading to a lot more of watching. I mean, we already watched a lot of other motorsports, but I feel like because of F1 kind of being shit, we've gotten even more into stuff. So we're just going to cover a little bit of everything now. We're still going to cover F1, but we're also going to sprinkle in everything that we're watching, whether that ends up being GT World Challenge, the NLS series, WEC starts this weekend, which I'm really excited about. We're, of course, NASCAR. We're going to talk about a little bit of everything motorsports all that we're interested in now. We're not just going to limit it to a singular motorsport anymore.
Yeah. And I think we actually alluded to the rebrand like several weeks ago, even before the break after your incident. Where we were discussing like, hey, we might rebrand, we might not, like this, that, and the other. We took some time, we rebranded. So now we're the Unhinged Motorsports Podcast. Thank you to all the pieces of crap that literally sit on the Unhinged name and don't post anything. Because of you, we can't do anything with just the Unhinged because that would be bad for SEO for us.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we're the Unhinged Motorsport Podcast now, and we're talking about all kinds of shit. Not just F1 drama, but all motorsports drama.
And first thing first, it wasn't a bad weekend for all Nepo babies. Lance Stroll may have had a horrible weekend in GT World Challenge, but NASCAR's biggest Nepo baby, Ty Gibbs, gets his first win.
At Bristol, nonetheless.
And I got to say, that race was
awesome.
Oh my God, it was fantastic.
I have a new respect for Bristol after trying it in your race sim.
Yeah, it's a fun track. And it's a very interesting track with how the grooves go. Most short tracks have one groove. Maybe you're lucky at certain tracks and it has two grooves. But Bristol is one of the few tracks where it's like from the apron to the wall, you can run anywhere in there. And that was the case Sunday where Ty Gibbs on some really old tires managed to hold off Blaney on fresh tires by running that high line right against the wall. I'm not a big Ty Gibbs fan. I'll be the first one to tell you that. I don't like the way that he drove in the Xfinity series and the way that he liked to chuck people out of his way routinely to get wins. But I got to say, I gained a lot of respect for him as a driver at Bristol because when you're holding off Blaney and Larson and they both have fresh tires and you don't.
Yeah, because they pitted at the last caution.
Yeah, that's wild to me. Like that is incredible driving. He did an immaculate job of just barely holding them off and being there at the end when it mattered. He didn't lead till late in the race, but he had good pace all day. And then when it mattered, he was just able to make it happen, stayed out when Blaney and Larson pit and took that risk and got the win for it. And man, what a place to get your first win, because that's a difficult track, man.
It's an incredibly difficult track, and I can speak from, NASCAR 2026 racing on a simulator where I got second at Daytona and 23rd at Bristol. So,
Yeah. Bristol will rough you up if you're not prepared for it. And I got to give the kid a lot of credit. There's a lot of things I don't like about the way that situation at Gibbs Racing has played out, in the sometimes favoritism it feels like he's given. But Bristol's one of those tracks where you either got it or you don't. And it's a very, you better be a damn good driver track.
yeah.
Like your car has to be doing good, but in a situation like that, you have to be able to drive the wheels off. Well, not really drive the wheels off it. You have to be able to save.
Yeah.
And I think that's what he did really well, because if you remember how he got into the lead by saving tires better than everyone else and being able to drive by the field because he used less tires, and then was able to keep those tires when everyone else had fresh tires on. And anytime you hold off guys like Larson and Blaney
You got to get
to
your
win
flowers.
a race, yeah, 100%.
Did you see SVG get wrapped up in that weird pile up?
He had a pretty bad weekend.
Yeah.
It just, some of the ovals are coming to him, but the short tracks, not all of them are. And Bristol's a difficult one, man. Bristol is a weird track because the balance is on such a knife edge, because you have to be able to get into the turn really well. But if you're loose at all, and that's part of this new package, this new short track package with more horsepower and these tires, the idea was to make the cars a bit harder to drive. And you saw it this weekend. The back end of guys was stepping out all over the place. And it's like, if you're loose at Bristol, you're in trouble. But if you're too tight, you end up like what Kyle Busch was dealing with all day, where I heard some team radio of his spotter and crew chief really getting into it, because it seemed like no matter what they did to the car, it just couldn't get into the corner. And he was hitting everything but the corner. And it just, they couldn't seem to fix that car to save their life. And
I was stoked to see Blaney starting off in pole, because my top three are Blaney, Larson, and Hamlin. So and Denny didn't have a great race. He seemed like he struggled at the tail end of the race. I think he finished 13th.
Yeah. It's weird because some of the guys who were really good early, Denny, Reddick, Bubba, especially like the Toyota guys. The Toyota guys who seemed to be fast early. Gibbs seemed to be kind of immune to that, where he was so early and then got fast late. But when you look at Reddick, when you look at Hamlin, when you look at Bubba, Bell hit the wall too many times, so I don't really count him. But they seemed to struggle as the day went on with handling, and they just couldn't really get it right. I think Reddick finished like 7th or 8th. Bubba got 11th. They looked really good early in the race and just couldn't get it going. It's the same for Logano. Logano looked like he was making a push towards the end and then just really faded. It was a really weird race where it seemed like guys would be fast and then out of nowhere the pace would disappear. And then you'd have guys that had no pace that all of a sudden the pace was just there. That's what happened with Gibbs, The you got towards the
Larson.
end of that run, and all of a sudden Gibbs is just a rocket ship after, chilling back in fifth, sixth place most of the day. And then all
Well,
of a sudden he's
that's how Larson was, because he led a lot of that race, and every restart Lawson would have, or Larson, not Lawson, Larson would have such a massive gap at the beginning of every single restart. He was a rocket ship. It was
yeah,
insane.
and then late it just didn't work out for him.
I think Gibbs did a really great job of holding him off. Like, I was watching the strategy of the corners, and I think if Gibbs didn't have such a good strategy, either Blaney or Larson would have overtaken him. And
Well, I think the thing that hurt Larson was that Gibbs was running his line. Larson wanted to run that high line as he typically does, but Gibbs was running it, so he was holding him up, and Blaney was able to kind of stick his nose in between them. And once Blaney got there, I think Larson used his stuff up a little bit, and then just kind of got caught in the kerfuffle that was.
yeah. But I was really hoping Blaney or Larson would win. At a certain point, I knew Denny wasn't going to be in contention, but he still raced a strong race. Like, there was some battles between him and Bubba, which were really interesting to watch.
They always battle a lot. I've noticed. You wouldn't know that they're
Boss and employee.
yeah, which, I mean, in fairness, as Denny says, when he's in the race car, he has nothing to do with 2311. He's a Joe Gibbs racer when he's in the race car. He's not a 2311 guy till he's out of the race car, which I got to give him credit. It seems like that on the racetrack because he doesn't cut those guys any slack and they race each other hard.
But I also think that makes them better drivers. Like, that makes 2311 drivers way better.
And no one will accuse Denny of letting those dudes by.
Yeah.
What I am interested in, and it was a growing thing last year, and I think this year it's even more so. So Alex Bowman finally comes back from his vertigo spell.
And then crashes.
And in fairness, this one wasn't his fault, but he was riding back of the pack all day, horribly slow. And you really have to wonder, before the vertigo incident, he was having a really bad year. He is now back and immediately is in another wreck. I don't think he's finished a race this year.
I don't think so yet so far. But is Bristol his first race back?
Yeah, Bristol was his first race back from
that's
vertigo.
A super fucking hard race to have your first race back at it.
Right.
So I feel less likely to, shit on Bowman. I do enjoy Bowman as a driver.
But that's typically a good Hendrick track. Now, William Byron also had a horrible weekend, so maybe. And Chase Elliott didn't have a great weekend either. Got wrecked on the last lap as well. But you really have to start to wonder. William Byron has been, or Alex Bowman has been the weakest link in Hendrick for a long time. There is now no win and you're in scenario for the playoffs. So I don't think he, especially with the start of this year, he's not making the playoffs. How much longer can Hendrick be patient with that 48 car being at the back of the pack all the time?
That's hard.
The time has to be running out on him. He has by far been the worst Hendrick driver since Larson signed. Since it's been Larson, Byron, Chase, and Bowman, he has been by far the worst Hendrick driver every year.
Well, Larson's always in contention.
And so is Byron.
Yeah.
And Chase has won a championship.
Yeah.
Larson and Chase have championships. Byron's come close. And Bowman is basically the Riley Herbst of Hendrick with a little bit better track record.
I feel like at the end of this season, it'll be pretty like crystal clear on whether Bowman has a seat next season or not.
And I don't know.
NASCAR doesn't typically make seat changes in the middle of the season.
No, but with his vertigo issues, if those come back, because that was kind of wild. And I don't know. Like, I hate feeling like I'm kicking a guy while he's down, but it's Hendrick. Probably the best Chevy team NASCAR has. You can't be bad for that long on Hendrick.
Yeah.
And you have to feel like time is running out for him, and I don't exactly know where the replacement comes from. I don't know if Corey Day is doing enough right now. I wish Hendrick would have given Raja Caruth a whole season in their car and O'Reilly's, because he's splitting it between two teams, and unfortunately the other team he's driving with do not make a car that can compete. But when he drives Hendrick cars, he's always in the top 10 competing. And I think if he was driving full time for Hendrick this year in O'Reilly's, I think he would be a contender for that seat. But you even wonder if they might steal somebody from another team at this point.
It could.
There's only so much patience you can have with a guy who's just not performing in the top team. There's a lot of guys that if you put in that car would win races and would win more races than Alex Bowman's winning. And I think he's a nice dude. I do. And it sucks, but this is a cutthroat business, and you can't be in a top team and be losing like this.
No. Especially, he didn't even have that great of a year last season either.
Well, and that's kind of the point, is there's not many years he does. He just has been saved by the winning you're in element of the playoffs, because he always manages to find a win somewhere. But without that element this year, I don't know if he even has a chance of making the playoffs with how much he's missed and how many points he doesn't have so far. He would have to go on a run that I just don't think he's capable of. And for Hendrick to have a guy, to not have all four of your guys in the playoffs would be a disaster, because you are the best team for that manufacturer.
And even to win, he's got like a pretty tight field between Blaney, Larson, Gibbs, and Reddick, Briscoe, Logano, Hamlin, Hocevar. Like it's going to be challenging if he can't continuously keep up.
Yeah, and I don't see it. And like I said, I don't know who would get that seat, but I think whether they start experimenting this year with somebody or wait till next year, somebody's got to get that seat. I just don't think this is sustainable for them. I think he's costing them more money than he's making them, especially with how many cars he's destroying.
Speaking of sustainable, how long is Red Bull going to sustain GP being Max's engineer, given that he is now officially signed with McLaren, broken by none other than Kim Illman. Kim Illman doesn't usually break the news. This time he actually broke it. He was the first thing I saw before I went to bed, and then I woke up and everybody was posting it.
So what I thought was interesting is Jos Verstappen made a comment that they've been aware of this for a while.
Really?
And I just have a feeling Max is out of F1 after this year.
Can you say GP's full name? Because I think I'm going to butcher it. Isn't it Giampiero Lambasi?
Yes.
Okay, so I didn't butcher it. So yeah, Giampiero Lambiasi is Max's race engineer at Red Bull. He's also the head of racing.
Yes.
At Red Bull.
He basically took over Jonathan Wheatley's job. He's the number 2 at Red Bull.
Yeah, and so this is a huge hit for not only Max, but for Red Bull as it stands. Like GP took over Wheatley's spot at Red Bull, but also kept his race engineer position with Max. And it's heavily speculated that he's going over to McLaren as head of racing, but that very quickly after he will be promoted to team principal.
Yeah, because he has a clause in his contract that they owe him a very large amount of money if he's not a team principal within a certain amount of time.
And with that has been also released by Kim Illman and his podcast co-host. I can't remember his co-host's name. I'm so sorry. He also said that Andrea Stella, the current team principal of McLaren, has signed a pre-contract with Ferrari, which is wild.
Yeah, there's a lot going on with this that is very confusing.
Yeah, where the fuck is Vasseur going?
And I also, but this whole thing, it really makes me think that Max isn't staying till 28.
I can't imagine Red Bull would have GP there until 28 because he has to do gardening leave and he's supposed to start in 28 with McLaren. So he's probably going to, after this season, probably go on gardening leave.
Yeah. What I would, if you're asking me to predict, I think I would predict that Max is done after this year. He leaves a year early. Well, I guess 2 years early because his contract was through 2028.
Yeah, to the end of 2028.
And GP is then on gardening leave for 2027.
Yeah. And there's so much moving parts in this, right? Things that we won't know. Well, at least with certainty. Like Red Bull came out, McLaren came out, they all posted statements about GP. That's cool. That's solid, that's certain. With Max, we won't know. But I'm assuming if Max and Jos knew a while back, that means Red Bull knew a while back. And that means Red Bull probably knows that Max is leaving at the end of the season. So who the hell takes Max's seat? Because I don't think any of the best drivers on the grid are available to Red Bull, given how their cars performed right now.
Well, but who's out of contract next year and not very happy?
Lawson?
Well, technically there's 2 people Charles Leclerc and George
Mm.
Russell.
Mm. I thought Russell signed an extension.
In theory.
I saw Lewis sign an extension.
But Leclerc is definitely out of contract. And that could be a very interesting move because I have a feeling Leclerc is slowly losing faith in the Ferrari project. But Russell could also be another interesting one because I think he is realizing that they favor Kimi over him.
If Russell goes to Red Bull, that's the end of my Red Bull fandom.
Oh, that would suck.
I
It would
can't
suck.
I can't root for Russell at all, and I can't root for.
Also, it is important to mention that Red Bull do have Yuki in the wings.
Yeah, but they wouldn't bring him back.
Maybe they would because a lot can be blamed on that car from last year.
I have a hard time believing that. I feel like they'd gun for somebody like Leclerc or Russell. And then, so here's my thought process, right?
Okay, but hold on. Let me say why I think this could be a thing. Because something went under the radar this week. Red Bull made a new deal with Honda. Because F1 has the rules of testing old cars, right? Honda is providing more engines to Red Bull of the old spec so that Red Bull can do more testing of the old cars. It's a new deal that just happened this past week. And I find that a little bit interesting.
That is a bit interesting. Yeah.
And Yuki is still pretty deep within the fold. If Max leaves, I could see them throwing him in either a Racing Bull or a Red Bull. They could promote Arvid. Arvid has looked amazing. So, and now maybe this explains their desperation to promote Arvid quickly to Racing Bulls to see what he could do because of the potential of Max leaving. We don't know how early they found out about GP. We just know that they have apparently known for a little while now, according to Yas.
Yeah. But also, Yas tends to be a talking head a lot.
Yeah, but
I don't like Yas all that much, to be honest, but
agreed. But in a situation like this, I can trust them a little bit because it's about Max.
my theory is Leclerc could go to Ferrari. Because there's also been some smoke about Ferrari trying to get Ollie into some type of Ferrari seat over the last several months.
See, and that's why I think the Leclerc thing might happen with Red Bull.
Yeah.
Is because they are very high on Ollie.
Yeah.
And Leclerc is getting a little bit dissatisfied. And if Red Bull no longer have Max, they all of a sudden have the money to sign a Leclerc.
Yeah. And also, like, I saw it once, so I can't say that it's for certain, but I saw that Lewis extended his Ferrari contract, which also find it hard to believe given his current position at Ferrari and like how he's been able to perform with Ferrari. But if that was the case and he did extend, Lewis would become Ferrari's lead driver. Ollie would then be the second sheet driver. That would be a fucking fantastic combo.
It would be.
That'd be so incredible. Good. That'd be so good. And Ollie could absolutely dominate in that Ferrari car.
Well, and I think Ferrari are worried that Ollie might end up somewhere else if they don't do something.
Yeah.
Another team maybe, because let's face it, a contract in F1 is only as secure as its buyout.
I'm pretty certain in my guess that it's going to be Leclerc to Red Bull. So if we're going to put it this way, and it's either Leclerc or Russell to Red Bull or them bringing back Yuki, I think it's going to be Leclerc to Red Bull. George stays at Mercedes. Ferrari brings Ollie in. Lewis becomes Ferrari's lead driver. And George has to either suck it up and not have a seat or suck it up and continue to suck Toto's dick. So,
Problem is, Toto's liking somebody else a lot more right now.
well, that's the thing. That's why he has to suck Toto's dick, because
Well, there could be a situation for Russell at McLaren, possibly.
oh, I would hate that so fucking much. Oh
with,
my
with
god.
Piastri, if something goes awry there.
I would
I
have
know
to
a lot of teams have been sniffing around about Piastri.
I would have to burn all my McLaren things. Like my hat, I have a flag that's not hanging up yet, but I have to put it up. I have McLaren like cars up here, both like
I can tell you one thing. If Max does leave at the end of the year, it is going to be wild. It is going to it's going to ignite the driver market the way it did when Lewis left Mercedes. Because when a top seat like that comes open, all things go crazy, especially when you get a chance to be the number one at Red Bull instead of Max. Oh my God. Every driver on the grid wants that spot, except for maybe a Norris and a Kimi. Those are probably the only two guys, and maybe a Hamilton, because he's never really gotten along with Red Bull.
yeah, but also Horner's not there, Marco's not there. Like
Yeah.
it could be a different story. But I don't think Lewis is going to switch from Ferrari before the end of his career.
No, because he has his ambassador contract, which is what he wanted.
Yeah. Did you
and
see
what Mercedes didn't give him?
Did you see that Saudi Arabia might slip in before Abu Dhabi?
Oh man, I did, and 4 weeks back to back to end the season is
That's a lot.
That's a great way to assure Max is leaving.
Yeah. It also lessens their winter break.
Yeah, and it's just chaos, just absolute chaos.
Yeah, it's like what, USA, and then I can't
USA, Qatar, Saudi, Abu Dhabi,
and then Abu Dhabi. Yeah, and that's a lot of fucking travel, especially from USA. That's Las Vegas.
Yeah,
to
Vegas
to
Qatar is horrible, and then
yeah.
It was bad when that was a triple header, a quadruple header to end the year. No one's going to want that.
Yeah. It's going to be rough. But it's also speculation. There's only one person that's actually came out and said that.
Yeah. So. I hope that doesn't happen, because that's unfair to
I've been very much in the mindset.
Travel. That's rough. I know the last 3 races are close together, but it's still rough. That's a lot of setup and tear down very quickly, and nobody wants to do that.
I've been very much in the mindset that Abu Dhabi could actually be canceled.
Yeah.
Given the conflicts right now and how they haven't gotten better. They've only actually gotten worse. Thank you, fucking Orange Man. You can go fuck off. But yeah, I would be surprised if Abu Dhabi actually happens.
Yeah, and that I think that's the part that's missing from this is like, who's to say by December all this stuff's settled? We're hoping by December it's all settled.
It's not going to be great if it's settled, though. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Well, it's either settled and an entire country is just fucking desert, dead bodies and like rubble, or it's a massive world war.
Yeah.
So
I'm in that same agreement where Las Vegas might be the finale. Or they might have to throw something else on the calendar last minute. But
another coda.
One thing I am interested in is who takes GP's role.
Hannah.
That is who I want to take it.
I'm betting on Hannah.
She is one of the most senior people on the pit wall now. I know she shares strategy duties, but I would really like to see that.
Yeah, I'm
I
putting
would
all
like to
my
see
coins
her.
on
The
her.
only question would be, do they have to split that role back into two, where you have an engineer and a sporting director slash director of racing, or do you have one person doing both? I think that's going to be the big question of, GP had been there so long and doing one job so long that it made sense for him to take on that role.
But Hannah's taking on two new roles if that's the case.
Yeah, that might be difficult. So I do wonder if they'll split that role into two people.
I'm wondering if maybe it'll be a shared thing between Mekis and Hannah.
I Part of me also wonders if there could be a return of Jonathan Wheatley.
Really?
Well, this is the reason I say that. Wheatley got kicked out of Audi. He didn't leave. I think that's very important to recognize. Is Audi found out he was talking to Aston and kicked him out. He does, as far as we know, he still does not have the job at Aston. With GP leaving,
Hannah could take GP's spot and Wheatley could return back to his original spot at Red Bull.
yeah, it would be kind of coming back, licking your wounds. But if the Aston spot all of a sudden is not open the way that it was, he may not have another spot to go to.
That's fair. Where does Max go if he leaves at the end of the season? And we've talked about this, but
Oh, endurance
it's
racing,
a
100%.
segue. It's a segue because there's also some GT World Championship stuff we
Yeah,
want to talk about. So.
I think we see Max go to WEC and possibly even do at least one IMSA race. I know there are teams really trying to push him to do the 24 hours of Daytona.
Oh, dude, that would be if he did it in 2027. Oh, dude, we'd be so stoked. Holy shit, we're gonna be
Well,
there.
yeah, there are teams, even if he stays in F1, who are offering their team up to become a Verstappen racing team, basically, for the 24 hours of Daytona.
Oh my god,
So
that would be so sick.
there is extreme interest from teams in trying to convince him to do that. We know he's very interested in doing the 24 hours of Le Mans. He might even do a whole WEC season because WEC has a pretty short season. They only have 8 races. I don't see him racing in GT World Challenge.
Not me
Um,
either.
I, he'll do the 24 hours of Nürburgring, but I don't think he has a real interest in doing the full championship. He has a team there, which began their season this weekend. It didn't go all that well for them, or really any of the Mercedes cars in general. It was kind of a bad weekend at Paul Ricard for the Mercedes cars. Um, he has, his GT World Challenge team. I could see him doing the 24 hours of Spa with his team. They are in the pro category now. So I could see him being a fourth driver for the 24 hours of Spa with his team, but I don't see him running the full GT World Challenge schedule. I just don't see that. It's more likely to see him in WEC and possibly IMSA as well. But I think that's what Max does if he leaves F1. Max goes endurance racing, which is what he's always wanted to do, and just does it 2 years earlier than he planned. And I think that's the most likely option, honestly. I if I had to put money on it, I would bet does not race in F1 next year. I think he is way too frustrated with the cars. I don't think they're going to change enough of the rules for him. They seem to only be really interested in changing the rules for qualifying. For whatever reason, FOM enjoy this fucking yo-yo overtaking bullshit that we're getting, and they don't seem to want to change that. And I just there was a really interesting clip, and I think I sent it to you, of Max talking with Dutch media, and I think what he said was really important. Is, you know, people can say he's just complaining because he's not running well, but he could deal with being seventh or eighth if that's just the pace of the car. What he can't deal with is not being able to drive.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw
What
that.
he hates about these cars is that you can't go flat out. The excitement of these cars is, you know, taking these cars flat out through some of the most amazing tracks in the world and being on the limit. Max loves being on the limit. And so he was saying, look, the problem isn't that I'm doing bad. I've done bad before. Nobody dominates forever. I can accept that sometimes we're just not good. And I think last season shows that. Like, Max wasn't an angry person last year when they weren't doing well. He accepted, you know, things are what they are. They made the run at the end of the year. But early in the year, you know, we talked about it a lot. Like, we expected Max to be a lot more discontent than he was when they weren't running good. He just kind of accepted it is what it is. And that's why I think that gives some validity to what he's saying. Like, we've already seen Max be okay not having the fastest car and just trying to get the most out of it. I think what he doesn't like about this is it doesn't matter if you're a good driver. It doesn't matter if you're good on the limit. There is nothing a good driver adds to these cars.
Yeah.
You know, last year in Japan, Max won that race by going absolutely insane in qualifying and being the best driver on track. This year in Japan, you couldn't do that. You were braking and letting off in the fastest turns.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's the problem. Wait till we go to Spa. And some of these amazing corners that we've gotten used to watching these guys rip around are charging zones. What fun is that? And you're starting to hear it from other drivers. But I just think, especially with the experiences, like you look at the difference in Max when he's driving the Nürburgring or when he's at the pits in GT World Challenge like it was this weekend versus when he's at an F1 track. He's a completely different human being. He looks depressed at F1 races. And then he goes to these other races and he's a completely different human who looks like he's enjoying life. And I think that's the sign, because Max has said many times, when it's not fun, I'm done. And it's going to be sad for F1 because for the first time in a long time, F1 is not going to be able to say, we have the best of the best here, because the best of the best will have left the series over its rules and gone elsewhere to test himself against better rules and regulations. And the other sports know it. If you watch GT World Challenge, the commentary team slandered F1 the whole damn broadcast. The whole broadcast. It could have been a drinking game. How many times they brought up, there's no recharging here, there's no energy. Like, it was if you would have done that drinking game, you would have been dead by hour 4.
Yeah. Yeah. How do the rules that are currently in conversation go?
Does it matter?
In my opinion, no. Because the
fact is,
the battery
they're not going to do the change that they need because they can't.
Yeah, like in my opinion, unless they can lessen the battery requirement and provide more engine power, there's not going to be a difference that's going to be really that truly different.
And right now they can't. And they're getting too much fight from Mercedes and Ferrari on that because they're at the top and they don't want to let go of that. And that's part of the problem. And again, FOM for some reason thinks that even if the overtakes are fake and worthless, that somehow that makes good racing. And dropping TV numbers be damned, they think they're right. And let's face it, that's how we got into this mess, because the drivers have been warning about how bad these regulations would be since 2023, and they didn't fucking listen. And this is what happened. You know, God, I wish I could remember who I was watching. I was watching something, and I thought it was really interesting because they basically said Formula One is making the same mistake NASCAR made, a decade ago, where they started catering to the casual fan and forgot what mattered. And only this year has NASCAR really started to get back to the roots of what they are and try to get the core fan back. And I feel like that's the problem F1's in now, where they have started catering to the casual fan and all about the outside things and have focused so much on sustainability, which I agree is important, but you have to look at that smartly. And I don't think they did. They tried to make a huge jump before they had even made a small step into that arena. They went their boundary. And now they're in a position where you are losing your core fans. Japan is the first time I have never watched a race.
I didn't watch Japan either.
I have not missed a race since 2016. Now, in fairness, when the original race happened, I was in the hospital. But I would like to mention, I managed to watch the NASCAR race while I was in the hospital. I haven't even watched the replay of the Japan race because I don't want to see it because I don't give a fuck.
Same. I was camping while the Japan race was happening, but I still haven't even looked at highlights, anything. I haven't even looked at final results.
Do you know how bad you have to screw something up for someone who is as big of a fan as I have been over these years? I mean, think about that. 2016. In 10 years, this is the first time I have not watched a race.
Yeah. And honestly, the whole premise of this podcast was started on Formula One.
Yeah, and it's just, what disappoints me most is that they don't seem to recognize how much they're losing the core fan. It was bad enough when the prices fucking skyrocketed for tickets. That was hard to deal with, especially in the US. God, our ticket prices skyrocketed. The difference in the first race I attended in Coda, and then when I went to a race in Miami, price wise, fucking ridiculous.
To be fair, I think you went to the first race in Miami, right?
Yes.
Or was it the second?
No, second. I went to the second
race.
race in Miami because the first year of a race is always a disaster. Anytime it's the first year they hold a race somewhere, it's always a logistical fuckery and never a good idea.
Fair.
You always got to wait till the second year. Anytime you go to the first year, it's going to be a disaster.
But the prices are astronomical. I mean, shit, you got tickets for both of us to go to IMSA, the Daytona 24 hours for way less than we would have paid to go together to go to like Miami or Vegas or Coda.
We got weekend pit passes. 4-day pit passes for 2 people for less than a Miami general admission ticket for one person.
Which is just fucking bonkers.
And that's the problem. You get a grid walk and pit access for IMSA for 2 people for cheaper than no access at all and not even a seat to sit in for Miami. Standing room only weekend ticket. Like, and that's the problem. You price your fans out, and then you take away the elements that meant something to racing and turn it into a fake show. And then you're surprised. What annoys me the most is we can see the TV numbers have dropped. And they still are like, oh, but the overtaking's great. We like the overtaking.
To the point where they're cutting out parts
Nobody
of
else
overtakes.
does.
They're cutting out parts of overtakes with Kimi, not Japan, but the weekend before.
Yeah.
Like they're cutting out the part where you could see him decelerate.
And they're so in their own bubble about what's going on that they don't seem to care enough about the discontent. And
No, because discontent doesn't make money. Investors do.
look, if you have F1 TV, go back and watch some of the races from 2015, 2016. Got a lot of half full stands. You're going to start seeing a bit of that again if you're not careful.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is how you lose a generation of fans.
Well, before we end the show, this is off the cuff. I just didn't tell you before show. I think it's important to give the listeners an update on how you're doing, given our last episode.
100%. So, all good news so far. Obviously, I'm still in a pretty decent amount of pain. I have a broken rib and a broken shoulder, so that's going to take a little bit. But overall, my healing process is going as good as it could go in this situation. I'm much more mobile this week than I was last week. More of an appetite. I'm eating more. Just everything in general is a little bit better. Energy levels are a little better. I mean, it's a very long process. I'm told about 6 to 8 weeks till whatever my new normal is. It's coming. I'm doing my best not to overdo it while still making sure I do all the things that I need to do. Pain's down from where it was. Sleeps a little bit better most nights. It kind of varies. I can shower every day again, which is the greatest thing ever. Not being able to shower for a while sucked. I feel much more human, and just in general, spirits are high, body's recovering well, and yeah, so far about as good as I could ask for, about as good as I can expect, given everything that happened and everything my body was put through.
Well, you already know I'm grateful to hear that.
Yeah,
I've also heard it before everybody else. Uh, I will say, going forward, we obviously have rebranded, and we're continually trying to make the show better. And we've discussed at parts to try to do the show in person. And so that could be something that comes up in the future. I'm not putting a timeline on that or anything. It's just very much as it works. There's a lot of moving parts. I mean, Josh and I live pretty close to each other, so it's not that difficult, but it still can be kind of a we have to buy new gear and figure things out.
yeah.
Um,
I have to be healed enough to be able to do some of the things required and all that good stuff.
yeah, but there might be some changes over the next year after Josh heals that will make the show better. But again, I'm grateful that we get to do another episode of talking shit and hanging out and doing cool things. And we'll get to a point where our pre-show is the episode, because I think our pre-shows are usually way better than the episodes end up turning out to be. The last few weeks, not so much, but that will go back to normal. You're already sounding so much better than you did last week.
Yeah,
Your
it's
voice is
nice.
back. Your voice is back.
Yeah, and it's nice to talk about race cars again. I miss talking about race cars. It's I have such a love for motorsports. I watch so much motorsport, and it's just nice to be able to talk about one of my favorite things again. It's going to be really nice this weekend because we have NASCAR at one of my favorite tracks, Kansas, one of my all-time favorite tracks. I love that track. We have the Nürburgring 24 qualifiers, 2 days of races, Saturday and Sunday, that Max will be taking part in, and we have WEC. So I am extremely excited for this weekend and how much racing we get to ingest and how much we're going to have to talk about on Monday.
Yep. Agreed.
Seems like a perfect place to end the episode. And God, I'm just so excited for next week and talking about whatever happens because, man, this is going to be such a great weekend for racing.
It's gonna be incredible. And I can't wait to talk about it throughout the weekend with you before we even get on the show on Monday.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I cannot wait for the weekend to get here. There's just so much awesomeness going on the racing calendar, and I just can't wait.
Well, as always, I've been Tyler. This has been the Unhinged Motorsport Podcast, and that's Ben.
Josh,
Again, thank you so much, buddy. I love you so much. And I love all you guys listening. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and watching, however you choose to listen or watch in. We'll see you next week. See you guys.